would like to give the floor to Dr. Swamy now, without much ado, so he can enlighten us with his knowledge and experience in the field. Let's welcome.
Madam President of SPICE, Mr. Vice President, you have a rank to United Nations official, let's say, and event manager, Sudha, of course I am not calling them by name, just UN, so I must use designations only. I'm most delighted to be here. The United Nations doesn't seem to have changed very much since, 50 years ago, or 54 years ago. I've been given the topic to speak, which I'll try to put it as factually possible. But how long do you want me to speak? If there's going to be a question session, I have to leave some time for that. 40 minutes and 20 minutes questions. Thank you. First of all, I'll begin by India's background and thereby its claim for being a global economic power. For thousands of years, India was the most developed country in the world by the then developing standards. In up till 1100, there was no challenge to India. Of the world GDP, India's share was 54%. And then with the foreign invasions, it started to decline. And with the British rule, the decline was even faster because it was a more systematic looting of our resources that took place during the British period. So India, having been for such a long time, not only in terms of producing goods for which people from all over the world came. In 1636, the only export of the United States to India, I mean whatever it was called India, at that time it was just New England, was ice. And they came to India, to Kanchipuram, to buy spices, cloth, small machines, wheel carts, etc. And the ice was imported because the American traders insisted on the king that his kingdom should buy something from America so that the ships don't have to come empty to pick up what they wanted to buy in India. And so finally the king said, the only thing I can think of that I have not seen is ice. And it's there in Himalayas, but it's a long distance away. But I hear that ice falls from the sky in your country. So if you can bring ice. So in Boston, near Boston, there is a big pond which freezes in the winter. And so they put sawdust, cut it up into little pieces and put it on a ship and took it all the way to India to sell it. That was the United States' first export item to India. In 1947, we had by then completely been impoverished. And then we adopted, I think, a wrong model. And that was the Soviet system. The Soviet model was based on the principle that you can extract the resources from agriculture and finance industrialization. It was okay for the Soviet Union because during the Czar period, there was an agricultural revolution. And it was abundant agriculture. So they could extract resources. But in the case of India, already during the British period, due to the zamindari system, the resources were completely extracted. And it was bone dry. And therefore it was wrong to have adopted that model. And that led to a major food crisis in the mid-60s. And then after that, Lal Bahadur Shastri initiated, before he departed, an expert committee to go in to see how agriculture could be revived. And so that's how a package was created of new seeds and fertilizers, etc., and led to what is called as the Green Revolution. But doomsday predictions about India has never ceased. I don't know why that is so. When we became independent, Churchill predicted that within 3 years India will fall into pieces and they will all come and beg us to come back to rule India again. Nixon had said that India was naturally 20 countries and the United States should assist in that. But the world, we have seen more other countries breaking up, but not India. Pakistan is broken into two during the Bangladesh war, and Soviet Union has now disappeared. It has dissolved into 16 countries: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, etc., Ukraine, so on. So there are 16 countries into which Soviet Union has broken up. Yugoslavia broke up into 4. Indonesia broke up into 2. India is not broken up. It has marginally increased its territory by including Sikkim in India. Maybe future history, I don't know how much more we will be able to include, but being United Nations, I won't be explicit. Now, therefore, this doomsday prediction, you see, in 1965, when we were dependent on the Americans for PL-480, and ships used to come literally because there was such a bad drought. So we relied totally on American supply of wheat for survival. And the New York Times used to have a headline saying, India is living from ship to mouth. That's the degradation we suffered at that time. And then two brothers, and you can get this from both Google and from Amazon, wrote a book in 1966 called World Famine 1975. And they were both officials of the State Department of the United States. And they said, and they were brothers, they said that now the United States has to plan for, say, a target date of 1975, when it will have to decide which countries to be given food aid and which countries not to be. He said, and they quoted a military example that in a battlefield, you always make a decision who are rescuable injured prisoners and who have to be abandoned because there's no hope for them. So in that category, they had India as a category which has to be abandoned. They said India can never feed itself. No, the entire world production of wheat is given to India still. It is a bottomless pit. And it is inevitable in 1975. India will be in famine, people will be cannibalizing themselves, there will be food riots and so on. It's all there in that book. You can read it. And I know it very well because I had just become an assistant professor at Harvard at that time. I had to teach development of India and China, and it felt very bad because it was all over the newspapers, this book. So what happened is that instead of world famine, India's becoming cannibals in 1975, Green Revolution came. It is essentially 10% of the farmers who benefited from this special package program. And we began to export food grains from that year. So totally contrary to the doomsday. The second doomsday we heard was that India can never grow beyond 3.5% per year. In fact, most of the left-wing economists in India had called it the Hindu rate of growth. I don't know whether you have heard this phrase, Hindu rate of growth. They describe 3.5% as a Hindu rate of growth. And you never exceed that. India is like an elephant, it will walk slowly, etc. But in 1990, when the predictions were India is going to have a financial collapse, it won't be able to have to default on its foreign debt payments, etc., a change came. Originally, when Mr. Chandrasekhar was there between 1990 and 1991, the blueprints for economic reform were prepared by me, but their government didn't last long. And then Mr. Narasimha Rao came, and Narasimha Rao, the first thing he did was call me to his residence and asked me to give him blueprints to him. And I must say he wanted me to join the government, but there was a condition that I should join Congress. But I said, no, I can't do that. So therefore he made me chairman of a body for connected with WTO with cabinet rank. And Mr. Narasimha Rao and I, and of course Mr. Manmohan Singh also had become finance minister. He was economic advisor when I was commerce minister. And we worked on this and produced what everybody thought was impossible. Transform an economy growing at 3.5% per year to an economy growing at 8% per year in just 5 years. And that economic miracle, everybody forgot all the dire predictions about India. Even today, the dire predictions will come up, India is in the state of collapse, etc. That doesn't mean we ignore the warnings, but I would say the potential of India, the basis that India has achieved so far, India is all set after certain course corrections which we have to do in the next 6-8 months to become a world power, a world global economic power. And there is no way of stopping India because of the assets that we have got, which people don't realize the kinds of assets we have, that assets which can transform India into a world economic power. Now, today, if you look at any United Nations, you have a statistical office here. I worked with them in the early 60s. They have produced what is called as GDP by purchasing power parity, PPP. And that means, you see, what happens is, if you evaluate by exchange rates, many of the exchange rates are mechanically decided. And so they don't reflect the actual value of the production. So therefore, it has been decided that the GDP of all countries would be evaluated in the currency of one country. And that was the basis on which they calculate the GDP. So that there is no price factor in the inflation or deflation of countries' GDP. For instance, if there is a devaluation, suddenly your per capita income drops in dollar terms. But actually there is no drop. So on that basis, India's GDP today is third largest. America is first, China is second, and India is third. So we are already third. We come a long way. We are ahead of Britain. And symbolically, one Gujarati has purchased the East India Company also in London. And now Indians are all over the place. So the demonstrated capacity of Indian workers in Saudi Arabia, or in the Middle East, IT scientists in California, bankers, chartered accountants, international bureaucrats, all the Indian ability of sophisticated thinking has been established. Recently, I don't know if you people remember, New York Times had a photograph of the Indian space scientists who made this great, 300 satellites or something we put into orbit. And all of them were wearing Kanchipuram saris. They were looking perfectly orthodox Indian women. And they were in fact rocket scientists. And they were celebrating. In fact, that great success we achieved in ISRO was due to women rocket scientists. So, therefore, I'm not surprised, you see, because in our mythology, as people call it, in terms of our religion, at least the Hindu religion, the Brahma's cabinet, all the important portfolios are with women. Finance is with Lakshmi, defense is with Durga, and education is Saraswati. So somebody said, "Did male God got any portfolio?" I said, "Yes, information broadcasting to Narad Muni."
That's a good one.
And Mahabharata about it. So I want to give this the human resources of India, which we are now calling as demographic division, is enormous. But they have to be transformed. Those who get the opportunity of being in a good family and therefore get a good education and then go abroad, that sort of thing. I'm talking about the broad masses. 70% of our population is below 35. The average age of an Indian today is 26 years only. Average age of a Chinese is 35 because of that one child per family program. And average age of the Americans is 37, of the Europeans is 46, of the Japanese is 50. These are aging populations. The young population, India has this huge stuff. And why I'm saying that is that economic theory says that spurts in growth cannot take place just by increasing capital and increasing labor. That in fact will put you in a curve which will have diminishing returns. So if you want to jump from curve to curve and really have a spurt in growth rate, then you must bring in new innovations. Like a locomotive and SMS steel blast furnace brought industrial revolution to Britain and then subsequently Europe. Then jet engines, fax machines, and now in the internet. These are American innovations, and they have transformed and raised the productivity. What an innovation does is raises the productivity of capital and labor, and that productivity jump we need. And so India now has to mobilize resources to have a vast high-class educational program and focus our young people on innovations to solve the blocks that we are having to become a great power. Can we overtake China? Yes, if we grow tomorrow for the next 10 years at 10% per year, we'll overtake China. And China has some limitations also. See, Chinese economic model is, in my opinion, a model which we should not adopt, and I don't think any country should adopt. But China had adopted, successfully adopted, but now they have to have a change from that model because that model is not going to take them any further. What was that model? They imported semi-processed goods from East Asia, added value to it, and exported to the West, and that is Europe and America. East Asia couldn't do it directly because their labor had become very expensive. So East Asia found it very profitable to take it to Shenzhen and all these other places in China and add value there, and then that product was exported. For instance, Lenovo laptop is not produced manufactured in China. The basic, the hard part of it, the circuit and all, they come from Taiwan. And then they put the screen, they put the keyboard. These are things that the Chinese add on to it. And then put a chip on it, made in China. So much of China is based on importing from East Asia and exporting to Europe and America. But the deficit in trade with East Asia is more than offset by the surplus in trade with Europe and America. And therefore, this model can go only so far because China's labor is also getting a little expensive. And we also are in a position now to get these East Asian countries to divert their trade to India, provided we improve our infrastructure. Infrastructure is a great headache. And this GST was brought in to see that the financial infrastructure is improved. There have been some problems of implementation, which I'm sure that over a period of some months we'll get it cured. But the fact is that because of this huge young population, we have to motivate them to solve our problems. Today we say we have a water problem. Tamil Nadu and Kerala are fighting with each other for water. Now, there are places like Rayalaseema which don't have water. So, therefore, what should be done? Rivers don't have enough water. Kaveri doesn't have enough water. And Vaigai in Tamil Nadu has no water at all. So, the obvious answer is to set up desalination plants along the coast of Tamil Nadu. And desalination is not now anymore an innovation in the sense it's already been discovered, we can improve on it. Now solar energy can be replace the electric power in the desalination process. If you put forward desalination plants on the coast of Tamil Nadu, you will produce enough water for the whole of Tamil Nadu, and also you will have enough water to pump it in the opposite direction of Kaveri and send it to Karnataka, because I say thank you for the past contribution of water to us. That is the one. Then we have rivers which are flooding all the time, and there are rivers which have no water. So if we build a water grid of canals from Ganga to Kaveri, for example, which needs to cross over the Deccan, which requires some technological innovations, then we will not have floods, and we will have all throughout the country water available in canals, and we will get a huge boom in agriculture. This is one potential. Second potential is our agriculture itself. I found to my surprise that we grow only in 25% of the land more than one crop. But we are blessed by the fact that we can grow 3 crops a year, because there are 3 purposes. God has been kind to India by giving you enough sunshine and a season where you don't have to worry about agriculture in terms of the weather. In America, for example, when snow falls, you can't do any agriculture at all. Europe also the same thing. But in India, you can grow 3 times the number of crops you're growing today. That means triple the production. And the yield can also shoot up. Indian Agricultural Research Institute pilot projects, pilot plots, thereby giving the proper amount of fertilizer, pesticide, water, etc., and good seeds. They are growing 7 times per acre what the average Indian farmer is growing. Same thing with milk also. We have 150 million cows, and 150 million cows give an average of 200 liters per year. One Israeli cow, on the average, gives you 11,000 liters per year. Imagine if all the 150 million cows give you 11,000 liters per year, then we won't need Indian Airlines. We can swim to any part of India. That's the kind of potential. That is what India was known for when they said Sone ki chidiya. You see, so this is the second advantage which we have to focus. We are not focused. None of the plans so far have focused on converting agriculture into a boom sector. And our agricultural products, please check the statistical books of the Food and Agricultural Organization. All our agricultural products are cheaper than the international price. We can sell, milk is sold at I think 4 or 5 times the price in Europe compared to Indian prices. Same thing with wheat. Rice is now in Japan is sold at 6 times the price is sold in India. So this whole sector can become and I would say this should be part of your strategy, and we are certainly working in that direction, that agriculture should become a globalized sector. And we'll have to put up a big fight in the WTO to get market access. But this is another part of it. Now, in this regard, I would say there are further things to be done, which can easily be done. One is, you want investment in the country, you can't rely totally on foreign direct investment. Because supposing Walmart wants to come to your country, should we agree or not? Now, see, Walmart has this great advantage of getting loans from American banks at 2% interest. The Indian trader presently who is in crores and crores, he gets loans at not less than 12%, which is the prime lending rate. And sometimes he has to get it 18%. If he goes to the informal market, he will get 25%. And because of the cheap labor, he's able to have a small margin, and he does the wholesale and retail trade. Now, Walmart comes in. They will they will dip into our cheap labor pool, and they will come with money from their banks, and therefore it's not a level playing field. So most of these foreign direct investment proposals, we have to watch whether there is a level playing field. And I would say that yes, if Walmart wants to come, I can tell you a method by which it can be done, and that is allow Indian companies to take labor from India and come to the United States and build houses, roads, and so on. And we'll produce the cheapest road, and we have done brilliantly in Malaysia, in Nigeria, in Iraq, in building roads. You can do a terrific job in America, build houses here, provided you allow our labor to come. But the Americans say no, labor is an immigration problem. Even for the skilled people, they are making so much difficulty. So, since foreign direct investment is not something we can rely on for our transformation, it has to be done by domestic effort. And already India has one great advantage, and that is the share of households in savings, in the total savings of the country, is 85%. That is 85% of the total savings in the country, which then becomes investment after adding FDI. That savings, national savings, is 85% provided by the households. So you have to empower the households to save more. And Indians do save more. And Indian women save the most. In fact, in this demonetization, the most affected people are women who are putting under their blouse and sari the money and suddenly stuck with a lot of cash. So one of the ways to do it is, my suggestion is, that since we are now getting increasing alternative sources of alternative avenues of resource mobilization, for instance, in 2G spectrum scam, after that we had decided to go for auction after cancelling all the licenses, and we got 4 lakh crore rupees, which is equal to the amount mobilized by income tax. And now after 2G we will also do 3G, after that 4G, 5G, and then coal blocks auction. That is going to get us 11 lakh crores. So if we have managed to get all the money that is stashed away abroad, which we are committed to, then you will get 120 lakh crores. That is 30 times the income tax mobilization. So I say internal income tax is forcing our people to make black money. So therefore, abolish income tax. There is no need for income tax. And if you abolish income tax, the rate of savings will shoot up. And the rate of savings shoots up, then the investments can rise. Other thing which was a mistake on our part, and that was high interest rates. These high interest rates affect our small and medium industries the most. And the small and medium industries produce the maximum employment in our country, especially for the semi-skilled, which is necessary. Unfortunately, we had a Reserve Bank governor who felt that by raising the interest rates he can control the inflation. But that was like a doctor who felt that by killing a patient you can lower the temperature. So the same way, by putting the economy into a depression, you can reduce inflation. And that was what is happening. All the small and medium industries were closing down. And though we must bring down the interest rates to 9%, and the fixed deposit rate also should be increased to 9%. And this way, if you, by incentives, motivate your people, you will get a lot of resources. So, these 3 things we have to do for switch trade, from East Asia to India and moving them away from China. It will hurt China, but then what can we do? Two, abolishing income tax. Three, by lowering interest rates. These three, plus tapping these sources which I told of innovation, India can grow at easily 10% per year instead of the maximum we have been achieving of 7.5. And 10% per year for 10 years, you will become a global economic power. And with the fact that the switch trade comes in, you will also become a global export-import country. And all these things, Indians are capable of doing it. It's a question of focus. See, our IT specialists, they were trained in India and they educated in India, went to America. Today, you see, somebody is head of the Google, somebody is head of the Microsoft, somebody is head of here. In the UN, you can see in very important positions, Indians have demonstrated capacity of managing the most complex organizations and doing the most complex subjects. We have this tradition, and that tradition is now being awakened. So when you can do this, when you can produce people for all kinds of these workers in Saudi Arabia, they are not IT specialists. They are all mechanics and chartered accountants and factory workers, that kind of thing. But they are doing such good work that Saudi Arabia has brought in now 20 lakhs or 2 million Indians in their country. So most of the Middle East also. So therefore, with this potential, our focus should be therefore on this. And the drag in our economy has been two things. One is agriculture, for which I have told you that it can itself become a self-sustaining sector if you focus on its development. And two, the restrictions that we have placed on people in high interest rates, in income tax, which is driving people to divert money into black money and therefore into consumption, luxury consumption, and therefore distorting the investment priority. Our country has not been able to still attain its potential of 10 and even up to 12% per growth rate. And that is the focus by which India can become a developed country within 10 years. And it is within our reach. With all these restrictions and all these mishaps, we have now become the third largest GDP country. China is within reach, and China has a lot of other problems which may mean that Chinese growth rate will fall further, and therefore we will be able to overtake them. And then, of course, we will probably end up competing with America on innovations, and that's something which the Americans will be not to be pleased about, because they have dominated the world for such a long time in innovations. For example, on substitutes for oil, crude oil, and fuel, like for example hydrogen fuel cells. One of the things we can invent is hydrogen fuel cells, so that automobiles don't have to depend on oil imported from Middle East. That Americans are not interested in that research because of the fact that they've got so much shale oil that they don't think the oil companies will not allow it. At the same time, we take for example the thorium. We've got 60% of the world's thorium. And thorium reactors, if we can set in place, for which certain research is necessary. We have not completed the research which Homi Bhabha started. If we do that, then we will be able to give power to every corner of India and to our neighbors. The Americans have got enough uranium, so they are not bothered about thorium research so far. But uranium won't last long. So if we can do so that the potential for India is enormous, and given its background, becoming a global power within the next 10, 15 years is within reach, and is something that we should strive for. Thank you very much.